Unwanted Encounter. In the bustling streets of Owerri Douglas Road, Nigeria, the early morning sun cast long shadows among the throngs of people making their way to work or school. Among them was Amina, a young woman with a quiet grace that caught the eye of many passers-by. Her usual route to town by minivan was a routine she had mastered, navigating the crowded stops with practiced ease. On this particular morning, as she approached the minivan, she noticed a young man standing nearby. His gaze lingered on her in a way that made her uncomfortable, though she tried to ignore it. As the minivan arrived, she boarded quickly and took a seat near the middle, hoping the young man wouldn't follow. However, to her dismay, he slid into the seat beside her. Amina stole a glance at him and saw his persistent stare fixed on her. Beside him sat an older gentleman who seemed more preoccupied with his newspaper than the unfolding tension. Amina felt a knot of unease tighten in her stomach as the young man cleared his throat nervously. "Excuse me," he began tentatively, drawing Amina's reluctant attention. "I couldn't help but notice how beautiful you are. My name is Tunde." Amina offered a polite but distant smile, hoping to discourage any further conversation. Tunde, however, seemed undeterred. "I live not far from here," he continued, his voice gaining a touch of urgency. Would you consider coming to my house? I have something to show you. I think you would like it." Amina's discomfort deepened. She shook her head gently. "I'm sorry, I can't. I have things to do in town." Undeterred, Tunde persisted. "Please, just for a moment. I promise it won't take long. I just want to talk to you." The older gentleman beside them lowered his newspaper slightly, observing the exchange with mild interest. Amina's mind raced. She knew it wasn't safe to go anywhere with a stranger, especially one who made her feel so uneasy. She glanced around, silently pleading for the minivan to reach its next stop. "I really can't," Amina insisted firmly, her voice barely above a whisper. Tunde's expression faltered, hurt flickering in his eyes for a moment before it hardened into frustration. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and Amina could feel the tension between them like a palpable weight. Just then, the minivan lurched to a stop, and Amina seized the opportunity to stand up quickly. "This is my stop," she announced, grateful for the chance to escape. As she hurried off the minivan, she heard Tunde mutter something under his breath, but she didn't turn back to listen. She walked briskly away from the scene, her heart still racing with the unwanted encounter. Glancing back once to ensure Tunde wasn't following, she let out a sigh of relief when she saw him still seated in the minivan, watching her departure with a mix of disappointment and resignation. Amina continued on her way to town, her steps quickening with each block she put between herself and the unsettling encounter. She knew she would be more cautious in the future, mindful of the unwanted attention that could lurk in even the most ordinary of mornings on Douglas Road. Throughout the day in town, Amina couldn't shake off the unease that had settled in her chest. The bustling market stalls, usually a place of comfort and familiarity, now seemed to hide shadows of potential threats. She kept glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see Tunde's face in the crowd, his persistent gaze haunting her thoughts. Despite her unease, Amina managed to focus on her errands. She visited the market to buy groceries for her family, greeted familiar faces with a smile that masked her lingering discomfort, and efficiently completed the tasks she had set out to do. Yet, beneath her composed exterior, she felt a sense of vulnerability that she hadn't experienced before. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting an amber glow over the city, Amina finally headed home. She walked briskly, sticking to well-lit paths and avoiding isolated areas. Each unfamiliar face she passed made her heart skip a beat, but she reminded herself that she had made it through the day unscathed. Arriving at her family's modest home, Amina exhaled deeply, relieved to be back in the comfort of familiar surroundings. She greeted her mother warmly, helped with preparing dinner, and recounted her day in carefully edited detail, leaving out the unsettling encounter with Tunde on the minivan. As night descended and the comforting sounds of her family's evening routines filled the air, Amina found herself reflecting on the encounter once more. She couldn't help but wonder about Tunde's intentions, whether his invitation was merely innocent curiosity or something more sinister. Regardless, she resolved to be more vigilant in the future, to trust her instincts, and to never allow herself to be in a situation where unwanted attention could escalate into something more threatening. With a determined nod, Amina pushed thoughts of Tunde to the back of her mind, focusing instead on the warmth and safety of her family's home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new encounters, but for now, she was grateful to be surrounded by love and familiarity, where she felt safe and protected. Be careful, be safe, protect yourself at all times. Black Screen Stories by a Nobody, Douglas Mayers.